welcome Pastor as he comes to bring the word.
I warned you last week. You did not want to be here today. I gave you my permission to not show up. And you showed up anyway. Now, if you get up while I'm preaching, and start to walk out, you will be surrounded immediately by security. We're going to look at 2 Timothy chapter 3, and I apologize for the screen. We do not have a screen. Anyway, we'll get by. You just take notes. You should be taking notes anyway. Every time somebody preaches, I take notes. 2 Timothy chapter 3, verse 1. This know also, that in the last days will come perilous times. Now, perilous means dangerous times. There's danger that's going to be around in the last days. And then it says, here's the reason why, and how you can identify the last days. Men will be lovers of their own selves, covetous, boasters, proud, blasphemers, disobedient to parents, unthankful, unholy, without natural affection, truce breakers, false accusers, incontinent. Now that's a strange word, incontinent. Fierce, despisers of those that are good, traitors, heady, high-minded, lovers of pleasure more than lovers of God, having a form of godliness, but denying the power thereof. From such turn away. Now, I'm not going to go into a lot of details about that, but I think anybody that has the brain cells of a catfish knows that this country and most of the world is in serious trouble. The downslide accelerated and moved into warp speed with the election of 2020. And it now seems that it's taken on a life of its own. Why is it happening? Has God turned his back on America? Has he turned his back on the whole world? Or is this something that's self-inflicted, preparing the way for the Antichrist? It seems to me that we're no longer building in this country. We're in the process of tearing down and destroying, and we are destroying the very foundations that this country was built on. Europe, especially in the Netherlands, they are closing thousands of farms. And the government's telling farmers, sell your property and don't be raising or producing any food. Why in the name of heaven are they trying to engineer a food shortage? A famine? You need to write this down. Everything that I'm going to be telling you about today is because it's all about people control. If the government, the powers that be, can control the water and the food, they have total control of the people. Now, in this country, energy costs have gone out of sight. Fuel, electricity, what you have to heat, cool, and power your home. But that's not really the most dangerous part. The dangerous part is the cost of fertilizer. Farmers are having trouble getting fertilizer. They're going in debt to pay fertilizer. If you think food prices are high now, wait till next year. It's not going to get better. Inflation. Credit card debt is at an all-time high. People are using their credit card just to stay even with where they were. And they're paying 18% interest. They're building up debt. People do not want to cut back on their standard of living. They're still eating out way too often, going to expensive restaurants. If you have a family of 4, you go to a restaurant, you're going to spend close to $100 before you get out of there. Now, the government says that our inflation is at 6%. It's a lie. I said it's a lie. The government has what they call a basket of commodities that determines how they figure the inflation rate. But they don't include food and fuel, which we have got to have. If you include food and fuel, the inflation rate is about 18%. Now, I'm asking some questions. Why are the globalists, that's the climate change fanatics, they used to call it global warming, and then they found out it wasn't warming, so they quit calling it that, and they called it climate change. Right. And every time there's a tornado, a hurricane, yeah, that's climate change. Every time there's snow in California, which they have snow every year, but this year it's exceedingly bad, yeah, that's climate change. They are telling the government, these globalists, that people are going to have to start killing their dogs and their cats and their farm animals to reduce the carbon footprint. Global warming is a hoax. It's a joke. Well, I don't believe that. But just think of all the other things that I've told you that you didn't agree with and you were wrong. You've been wrong so many times, one more probably won't hurt. This global warming is just another tool the government can use to control people. We're going to quit selling gasoline or diesel tractors and cars. You're going to have to buy electric cars. It's control. People back in the 70s, these globalists were talking about an ice age is coming. How many remember that? They were saying, if you are north of the Mason-Dixon line, you won't be able to grow any food because the temperatures are going to drop 20 degrees. I remember that. Now, there's a lot of things I don't remember, but I do remember that. What is going on? Why is our government giving away money like it's corn shucks? He intends to add another $6 trillion to the debt in the next 2 years. It's all about wanting to pay people's school debts. That is the most ridiculously stupid thing. How many went to school and paid your own debt? What about us? Are they going to come back and pay us for paying our school debt? How ridiculously stupid can government be? It's all about people control. Why is Europe on the verge of World War II? China's supporting Russia. United States and NATO supporting Ukraine. We have given billions of dollars to help Ukraine fight a war that they can't win. Either way it goes, they can't win. They're losers. They're going to wind up having to rebuild their entire infrastructure. And who do you think is going to pay for that? We are. The U.S. and NATO is close to entering the war now. Russia and China are warning that we're close to nuclear warfare. Why? Now I'm just asking questions. Why is serious crime and mass murder so widespread in some of the major cities today? Every day on the news, almost every day, there's a mass shooting and mass murder somewhere. Looting. People going into stores with black garbage bags, into grocery stores, drug stores, jewelry stores, breaking the glass, filling up their garbage bags and walking out the door, and nobody says anything about it. I wonder what would happen if I was a shop owner. Somebody'd be carrying something out, but it wouldn't be what they had in their bags. The riots in 2020, Black Lives Matter and Antifa, 18 people died, $2 billion worth of damage done. The media and the Department of Justice acted like it never happened. January 6th came along. They accused Trump of telling the people to go tear up the Capitol building. All he told them was, march peacefully down to the Capitol building and make your complaints known. The media and the Department of Justice went absolutely insane. And they are putting people in prison for ungodly amounts of time, 40, 45 years, because they entered the Capitol building. Why is the Department of Justice and the FBI become political tools for the Democrat Party? Why are criminals go unpunished in a lot of cities? People have been arrested for mass murder have rap sheets, pages long, and they're still walking the streets with guns. One man said they'd been arrested 44 times in 1 year. They interviewed him and he laughingly said, "That's just a small fraction of the times that I shoplifted, and as soon as I walk out of here, I'm going to go lift some other stuff." Crazy. Lady Justice stands with the scales of justice in her hands, supposed to be showing that equal justice for all. But the FBI and the Department of Justice, increasingly motivated by partisanship. We live under the power of a government who has absolute modern-day surveillance. They have the technology to monitor all of your electronic devices, listen to your phone calls, read your emails and messages, and they call it national security. Politicians call themselves public servants. They're not serving the public, they're self-serving. I wish someone, and I challenge people, to tell me how someone can get elected to Congress or Senate. They make $178,000 a year, and in 6 years, they are multi-millionaires. They're in it for themselves. I'm talking about Democrats and Republicans. It's not an accident that politicians want to create racial and economic division among the people. If you divide the people, you win the war. 12 Republican senators voted for the Marriage Protection Act. It was a bill designed to protect same-sex marriage. Our government approved sexual perversion equal to Sodom and Gomorrah. Woke, my God. I'm trying to be nice. This is my nice day. But I warned you not to show up, didn't I? Woke, being taught in the schools, colleges, universities, and even the military. And it's got to where people don't know if they're a man or a woman. Transgenders, transgender bathrooms, men wanting to play women's sports because they say they're a woman. Men dressed as women have drag queen shows in schools. God made male and female. He made Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve. And if you have trouble identifying who you are, look between your legs. If you got something hanging down, you're a male. If there's nothing hanging down, you're a female. And just because you cut something off that's hanging down doesn't change who you are. Boys and girls are being asked when they're 5, 6, 7 years old, would you rather play with boys or girls? If a girl says she'd rather play with boys, she's transgender. How many of you girls grew up tomboys? Are you sure you're a female? Wow. It's open warfare. Politicians, Democrats and Republicans. And they're fighting it on two fronts: the ballot box and pandemics. It's all about controlling the people. The greatest attack is coming, now watch, via taxing on private property. And if they raise the taxes enough and you can't pay it, they'll take your property. Wow. They are now trying to start taxing your retirement, your 401k. Take as much as 50% of your retirement. This open borders. Wow. Unvetted illegals by the millions. And then they lie about it. These illegals, taxpayers are having to pay for these people. In New York, they're living in a hotel, $400 a day rooms. That includes food, but they won't eat the food. They throw it out by the dumpster loads. They want hot plates in the room so they can fix their own food. They don't want to come here to be like us. They want to come here and make us like what they came out of. Are you still all right? People fail to realize that these illegal immigrants, if you're not here, if you're not a citizen born in this country, you are a trespasser. Yes. And without law and law enforcement, there's always chaos. And it looks more and more like the far left wants open borders that the taxpayers have to pay for. Free housing, food, health care, education for the kid. And when they come across the border, they give them a plastic bag that's got a phone, money, and a credit card in the bag. All paid for by taxpayers. And I heard two Democratic congressmen, women, screaming at the top of their lungs, we've got to defund police and replace them with social workers. These are congresswomen screaming, wow. Let me ask you something, ladies. I think I've mentioned this before, but I need to say it again. If you have a gang break into your home and they're tearing your clothes off and they're going to take turns violating your body, do you want some little social worker coming in with his briefcase saying, can we talk about this? Can you tell me what happened to you when you were young? Or would you rather have some police officer come in with his gun blazing? You're not mad at me yet? And what about the supposed pandemic and phony vaccines? Amen. Now, I had mine. I even took the booster because I believed what I was told. Now then, they're saying that the death rate of COVID-19 is climbing, and the CDC publicly admits that more people that are vaccinated are dying than unvaccinated. Phony. Why is the world in such turmoil? I'm going to wrap up. Is it because we have such a lack of leadership in the United States? Why is the world in such turmoil? Is it because the globalists are proclaiming that the world's biggest problem is climate change? Al Gore said 30 years ago that because this was global warming, that because of the warming the ice caps were melting and that most of Florida would soon be underwater. How many remember that? Let me tell you what. Why don't you fill a glass full of ice and then fill it full of water? And when it melts, see how much water runs out of the glass? There will not one drop. It's all garbage. It's to control the people. Why is there such turmoil? Is it because we are in the midst of the world's greatest Ponzi scheme? Government's printing worthless money. Our debt is now $31.5 trillion. That's 31 with 12 zeros following it. And he plans to add another 6 trillion in the next 2 years. Why is the world in such turmoil? I'm getting through. Is it because we've rejected God and forsaken God's house? Is it because we're trying to solve problems that only God can solve? Is it because we're trying to answer questions that only God can answer? We need a revival in this country. We need to have God, prayer, and the Bible back in our schools and back in our churches. If you're listening to me and you stood it this long, and you're attending a church that preaches nothing but a socialist gospel, get the blank out. Run as fast as you can. Run like your shirt tail's on fire. Get in a church that will preach truth where you can find it. People need to get in church. Churches should be full, standing room only every Sunday. There ought to be a time of Bible reading and prayer in the homes and requiring the kids to take part of it. Are you prepared? Let me ask you this question. How long could you last if your water supply was shut off? Would you be trying to find water in mud holes and ditches? How long could you last if your groceries run out and you went to the store and the grocery shelves were all empty? How long could you survive? Look at Joseph. He prepared for 7 years for the drought that was coming. God said, "Go to the ant, you sluggard." The ant prepares in the summer for the winter. Are you prepared? Think about Noah. Noah was warned that there was going to be a flood, so he spent a year building an ark to save his family. People say, "Well, I just believe God's going to supply." I hope he does. But I think God gave us sense enough to know to prepare best we can for ourselves.